Hello, sunflowers, and welcome to Good Journeys Tarot. This is 78 cards in 78 weeks, where we are walking through each card in the tarot as I attempt to draft what my own deck might look like. And we only have 2 cards left after today. Can you believe it? We have been through 75 cards already, and today we're going to be looking at card 76. Interesting thing about this card, I always start by reading the pictorial key each week to see what Waite had to say about his image before I go reading all of the other books and looking at all of my other decks. And I want to read what he says real quick because it is nothing like the way we have come to interpret this card. It says a young man in the act of dancing, okay, which is a surprise to me because we always think of this as the juggler card. Has a pentacle in either hand, and they are joined by the endless cord, which is like the number 8 reversed. On the one hand, it is represented as a card of gaiety, recreation, and its connections, which is the subject of the design. But it is read also as news and messages in writing, as obstacles, agitation, trouble, embroilment. And what's interesting is that while we see it similarly in the reverse, most of the time we don't think about this card as a card of messages, right? I mean, we usually reserve that for our aces and our pages. And so it's very interesting to have read the pictorial key and see it's completely different to him than it is to most of us today. I have a friend with me today who is going to talk about this card and share some images with us. And I am very excited that she said she would come on because she's on the other side of the world from me. And so I believe it's kind of getting in the evening for her. If you are not familiar with Maria Alviz Hernando, you need to hop over to Instagram right now and check out the videos she has been posting on alternative readings of some of the cards, which are just amazing. And I can't wait to go through and rewatch all of them as I'm working on my guidebook. Um, Here is Maria now. She is the Sibyls Tarot.
Hi.
Um, I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. I have been so excited about this ever since we talked about it. So thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it was amazing getting to meet you in person at StarCon.
Yes,
And
it was.
I did finally get to go back and watch your presentations online since I was occupied through most of
Yeah,
the event with other things. So, yeah, so today we are looking at, whoops, the Two of Pentacles.
the Two of
And
Pentacles.
yeah, so what's the first thing you think of when you see this card?
Well, I am of the juggler team, and what you read about the this card in the pictorial key, which I must confess I haven't read, so that's something that I should correct at some point. But that was all new information to me. I am the one who thinks about the juggler, the one who thinks about balance as well. That's probably one of the mm, first keywords I learned with this particular card, this balance, the fact that both pentacles are in that man's hands, but at any point they could be in the air. So it's like that moment of anticipation in which you are barely holding on to different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I have never really liked this image for this card. And I found out I'm not alone in that in reading and listening to some people talk about the card because
Yeah,
I too had seen it as a juggler. And for some reason, that just didn't click for me. But then when I read it was the dancer, I was like, okay, yeah, I can relate to that because one of my favorite images that I came across in my collection was from the Penumbra Tarot, and it actually is a dancer.
that's a
And they
beautiful
talk about the dancer. Yes,
image.
it's a gorgeous deck. And she's dancing there on the edge of a cliff, which is reminiscent a little bit of the Fool. This is
It
at the
is.
beginning of our minors. You know, we have the ace and then we have the twos. And so I kind of like that idea too. But seeing it as a dancer, it does help me get that idea more of it's less about having to struggle to juggle two things and more about finding the balance, the grace to deal with all of these things.
I think that's key. The
Yeah.
fact that you are changing the struggle of juggling for the grace of dancing, as in this is something that comes naturally to the person and not something that they need to be forcing in a way.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that comes in with the lemniscate or the infinity symbol. There's
Yeah,
this idea that spirit or the universe is present to help guide us through the ups and downs. So even though we have a down, there's going to be an up and
yeah,
vice versa, kind of thing. I have some other cards here that are reminiscent of the Smith way. This is the Curious Travels, which is basically a person juggling. And here is the Nested Tarot, which is I love these nesting dolls. They're very pretty, but it
that.
is the Smith weight imagery. So how about you? What cards have you pulled out for us today?
So I have one here of this deck, the Business Class Tarot. It's a really different deck, but I really love it because it's based mostly on business and the career outlooks. With with the cards, and here in this deck, this is the Two of Money, and I don't know if you can, maybe not because my camera is not so good, but you can see that there is this woman in what looks like either a basement or a warehouse, something like that. And in the news here, there are news of a hurricane. And what this card, the vision that the author of the deck was offering about this card was that of despite the urgent demands that you are getting from the outside world, you are withdrawing and trying to focus on sorting what needs sorting on your end. And it was, like the whole ups and downs and the whole balancing aspect of it is, what's happening outside versus what's happening inside, or what needs to be done on a more individual level. And I really liked how this card is a bit different from a standard interpretation, yet still close enough, let's say.
Right, right. Yeah, I think it was Benabel Wynn in her video that talked about how the twos all sort of represent internal choices about certain things, like in this case, about our physical world
Yeah.
and how we're going to manage those ups and downs financially and physically, health wise, or whatever it might be. Interestingly enough, we have a good contingent from Europe today. Marion Kay has popped in for the first time,
Yeah.
and
Hi,
Tony is
Marion.
here. So glad to have you guys. And there's Amy from Strength Reverse. Um, Marion and Amy were at StarCon with us. It's great to see them.
Yeah.
Um, so this is the Out of Hand Tarot, and here we have
Oh, that's
Apple.
Jamie Sawyer's, right? Has to
Yes,
be.
yes.
I
It's a gorgeous deck. I do love it. I
I
have
have
that
Pocket
one
of
as
Tears here.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yes,
have.
and,
Yeah.
so we can talk about both of hers right now, but in
Yeah.
this one, she kind of focuses on those choices, right? I mean, these are both healthy, they're both good for you, they both could work out, but it really comes down to, which is it that you're drawn to at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Um, which is gonna get you through your day, basically. And then the card that you have there, the Pocket of Peers, which I also drew out, I thought this was
Yeah.
a lovely example. You wanna talk about this card?
Yes, I mean, I saw this one as a different way to dance, as you say. I think I'm going to stick with that dance new interpretation, really, because it feels, as I said, less forced, more graceful. And I mean, there is this new baby, so this person is obviously trying to blend that new maternity situation with the artistic part, which is also like all that's happening here is kind of watery to an extent, but I love it as a representation of the Two of Pentacles too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she talks about in the guidebook, she talks about how it's not necessarily about a choice between one or two, but it's about how we choose to blend those things together
Exactly.
to move forward. It's about finding that which is both. And since we're talking about that, one of the topics that comes up a lot with this card in my reading is duality. And I have this thing about duality. I don't believe in duality. I believe it's a spectrum. And I believe that, there's that which is neither in both, which we can see in the Kabbalah tree of life as well as other things. I wrote a whole article about it.
Yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is because we see that infinity symbol, right? And with two things on either end, there's an up and a down, but there's that middle part, right? There's that fulcrum or that center where they meet. If you to balance, you have to find that middle, right? You can't just focus on this one, or you're out of balance. You have to look for both the up and the down and not focus on one or the other.
Yeah.
So to me, the idea of duality is a little bit mythological, because it's choosing to overlook that which balances it in the middle. But that's just my 2 cents.
And regarding that you have said about duality not being exactly a thing, that has reminded me of this card. I think I showed you a bit earlier about this is the Haunted House Tarot, and I mean, this is kind of a bit of an out there interpretation, maybe with the twin sisters of The Shining. But what this says in the guidebook about this deck is where there was one, now there's two. Stakes that are doubling, something that grows from unity, because it's what happens actually with twins, right? There was one thing that turned into or split into two that are similar, also different. So I think that links with what you were saying about duality and all the in the end being a bit all of the same.
Sure, sure, absolutely. There's another way that I see this depicted in certain decks, and that is with two-headed people. This is the Mystic Medleys Tarot, and this is the Numinous Tarot. But basically, this idea of being pulled in two different directions, and I think it's that in this case, it's that spine that we use to balance ourselves there in the center, that brings that kind of um, transmutation or transformation
Yeah,
from one thing to another thing and then back again. And so I kind of like this depiction, although for me it's a little odd because it's not a very common thing to see in the real world. And so, but that was an interesting way of depicting that being pulled in two different ways, I thought. Let's see.
it is. Oh, there's Amy saying, I made your StarCon. I'm the one who accidentally tripped you. That was hilarious. You missed
Oh,
that probably, Rosemary, because that was not caught in video. But I mean, I was bound to fall or trip at some point, so I am not holding that against you. I don't need help to trip, to fall, or
it
to do
happens,
anything,
right?
yeah, like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was bound to happen.
Yeah. So this card is related to the physical world, and here's one way that that was depicted in a
Oh,
card,
what
which
deck is
was
that? That's
the
lovely.
this is the Urban Tarot. Most of the imagery is from New York. It's by Robin Scott. It was published by
Yeah.
U.S. Games, so it is mass market. It's available out there. And she it's a blend of the Smithwaite and the Thoth. So she used the keyword change, which
Uh-huh.
is part of the Golden Dawn name for the card, the Lord of Harmonious Change. And that idea that change has to start somewhere, that it's almost karmic, right? That we have to make a choice to do something so that we have that future reward, right? There's that moment where we're down, i.e., we are doing the exercise we don't want to do, but that up where we are physically fit, right? And so it's about, I guess, mentally achieving that balance, right? And thinking, okay, we have to go through this to get
To get there.
here. And a
Yeah.
lot of people talk about how this relates to money, of course, because historically the pentacles or coins have been related with money. And in particular, this card related to debt and needing to balance out things like robbing Peter to pay Paul so that you can get through to the next
Yeah.
day. And so for me, that totally relates to when you live paycheck to paycheck, like I've done most of my life, you're like, okay, this week I'll pay these bills, next week I'll pay these bills. And, so which ones can I put off till the next time because I don't have enough this time for all of them, kind of thing. And the keyword embarrassment comes up in a lot of Terre de Marseille interpretations of the card, and the idea of that embarrassment over money, not so much just embarrassment in general, but over not being able to fulfill your debts. Comes up in this card, which I thought was interesting. It's a very different interpretation than we typically see with the idea of the juggling and finding stability in things.
It is. Today I'm learning way more than what I am saying, but I mean, that's a really interesting
Yeah.
perspective. Maria says it was a test of Maria's balance. Well, I failed.
There
To
we go.
no one's
There we
surprise.
go. That whole thing is about the two there, right?
I mean, that was my two of
Yeah.
pentacles moment for sure.
Speaking of change, I have a lot of decks that incorporate Thoth and Smithwaite imagery together, or at least the interpretations together. And I find that those resonate with me more so than like one or the other typically.
I'm a Rider
And
Whitesmith girl, so
yeah,
that's probably why I have less to say today about this.
yeah. So we have in the New Era elements, there is this tree that's going through different seasons, and how there has to be that harsh winter to have that beautiful spring kind of feeling. And in the Mystic Garbage Tarot, that idea of finding balance with your body when you're a trans person, depicted here through a um, female to male transition, and which kind of spoke to me as a trans person. So I did enjoy that. But a big thing that comes up for a lot of people is that setting of priorities, which we see in Grace Collis's deck, the Lightworkers
Yeah,
deck, who you met at
yeah, I
StarCon,
did.
and she depicted it with two different paths. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like it's not an either or. I feel like it's finding where that which works in between most of the time. Although in reverse, I do feel like there's this unbalance and you have to let something go. Like one thing is weighing down more than the other, perhaps, and causing too much trouble.
I think a choice can be a part of this card to an extent, like maybe not as a main thing, but in the end, when you are trying to balance different things, sometimes you have to choose what you're going to grab and what you are going to let fall. So that can, in a way,
Right,
be there.
absolutely. And sometimes failing to make a choice can result in a choice all its own. Like here in the slow
Yeah,
tarot, she's struggling to make a decision, and while she does, her tub overflows. Which to me
is
is kind of like a shadow side of this card, where we fail to make a choice, and so then things just happen to us, right? Um, yeah,
that would be kind of a seven of cups for me, when too many choices kind of take away the choice from you. I hadn't thought about it this way, but it definitely is an aspect. What would you say? Because well, you were speaking about the shadow aspects of the Two of Pentacles, and I have seen this as a very neutral card in a way, or at least that's how it's mostly represented. So what are your I'm still in the interview here, but I would
no,
love
no,
to
that's
see.
fine. Yeah, so I
I would
guess
love to know more about that shadow part of it.
so. Yeah, so the shadow part, which we were going to get to talking about in a moment,
Okay,
anyway.
okay.
So
I'll shut
let's
up.
go ahead. So for me, I guess when I think about the shadow side of a card, I think of like um, not embracing the energy of the card. So rather than finding that balance, things are unstable or get out of control, like here in this card. And I feel like sometimes in particular decks, you'll see where people will skew one way or the other to the more upright meaning or the shadow meaning in their
Yeah,
interpretation of the card. And this is one of those where I felt like it reflected more of a shadow idea than an upright, um, possibly being overwhelmed or off course. Like, for example, this week in my life, this presented itself kind of in the reverse, as sometimes these cards do when I work on them. And that I've had two projects going on simultaneously for a few months now. One is a group project with a bunch of different people, and it kind of came to the point where I was really overwhelmed and frustrated, and I had to make a decision about how I was going to balance things out. Because as a person who is working a mundane job full time, I only have so much time for tarot and tarot related projects in my life. And so I finally had to make the decision that, I had to cut one of those out. And the group project just made more sense because this is my baby.
yeah, of
And
course.
I'm always finished with it, right?
Yeah,
And there's a lot of things coming up in the future which are dependent on it being finished. Like we were talking about beforehand about the announcement for StarCon 2024 that I'll be presenting, and part of that is based on my completion of this project and being able to present about some things that I have learned through it, and I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so sometimes in reverse, I feel like it can mean that you're getting off course, like,
yeah,
and you've lost your focus. So, like, you were not headed in the you're allowing yourself to get off balance, like I did with taking on an
Yeah.
additional project, so to speak, and then later realizing my mistake. So
Now that I think about it, I have had quite a Two of Pentacles week myself. So it might have something to do about it. But when you were saying that about your projects, I too was taking on too many things, and I had to just pause and delay something because otherwise I was going to lose it. So yeah.
yeah. Well, I only have a few more cards, and they're all related to the same thing, which is my favorite version of this card. Uh,
Okay, let's see
and
it.
but before we do you have any other cards that you're going to want to share with us today?
Well, what I have this card here. This is from Robert Plays Vampire Tarot, and this is my favorite deck of all times. And while this is not a particularly, you know, different card, maybe, but I just like to show this deck whenever I can because it is really beautiful and it has this in what I like about this is that in this deck, the pentacles are this lily of the valley, which is actually a poisonous plant that can look in certain ways like some other plant that's edible.
Right.
So I like how this is bringing into pentacles in general that kind of the implication that maybe too much involvement with that element can be poisonous in a way, or if used in a way other than as you should, it can end up going against you.
Right.
So that's something more of the suit or the element in itself than of the Two of Pentacles in particular. But I like that addition or that layer into the element of Pentacles, into the suit of Pentacles. Sorry, I am so
Sure. No,
obsessed with elements that I always say element.
this is an excellent transition because the cards that we're going to be looking at now are
Yeah.
all similar to this. And in fact, one of
Okay.
them incorporates this same idea of poison. And I'll mention that in a
Oh,
second.
let's do it
I
then.
have always been much more a fan of the Thoth and Marseille versions of this card than the Smith Waite. Here are two Thoth versions. And you'll see that serpent, that Ouroboros there.
Yeah.
In this case, they represent the duality with the sun and the moon there in the eyes. And then in the Thoth, of course, there was the yin and yang, which is reversed
Yeah.
on the bottom. And there's this idea that with Jupiter in Capricorn, that your wheel is reversed. And so you'll see that represented here in this way and here by the sun and the moon. And even in some decks, which we're going to get to in a moment, they use the imagery from the wheel in this card, both upright and reverse, to resemble how we have ups and downs, and the Ouroboros for specific purposes either. But before we jump into that card, I wanted to show these two Tarot de Marseille. I
Yeah.
love having a title card in the deck. I just think that's just inspired and beautiful. And I like that they incorporate that kind of lemniscate energy
Yeah.
into it as well. It's one of the few pips in the Marseille that like really resonate with me as far as meaning when I look at it. So that's something I felt like I really wanted to do with my deck when I started it. So I had worked on this about 6 or 7 months ago. And then this is, of course, the New Choice Tarot de Marseille. And I forgot to mention, this is the Tarot de Marseille Edition Millennium. And this is
That
the
is
New
a
Choice Tarot de Marseille.
beautiful deck.
This one.
What is it called again? Oh, the backs. I love the backs.
Yeah, this is the New Choice Tarot de Marseille. It is inspired by 80s club culture. It's kind of a blend of the leather community and the LGBT community in Germany of the 80s. And
Wow.
it is gorgeous. I do have, I believe, a video walking through this deck if you want to see what all of it looks like. And it is,
Sure.
I believe, is shipped from Europe. So it may not have all of the same custom issues as here.
So now we are going to spend some money, and right after this ends. Now we are all going to buy.
So here is my favorite version of the Two of Pentacles, and it is a blend of both the Marseille and
Yeah,
Thoth ideas as well as the Smith Way, and that is the Spirit Keepers Tarot by Benabel Wynn. You'll see there the
very
snake.
beautiful deck.
It's called the Nocturne, and the idea here was that yes, the snake has poison, but certain poisons can also be medicinal. So it's really in all how you use things. There's both an up and a down side. And I loved how she represented it with the southern and northern nodes. So even in reverse, it's the same. So in this particular card, regardless of upright or reverse, it's almost the same card because you have this centerpiece, which represents the zodiac and the moon phases, which is the wheel, and the wheel is reversed. So when you reverse the reverse, then it's upright. And so it's a reminder that there's always going to be an up and a down. And for me, it's really about finding that balance. And that spine or fulcrum in the middle to maintain things. And Marian even mentioned a little while ago about how a lot of times this card is about making a choice that will help you achieve that balance. Which I kind of liked. And oh, here's something I didn't know. Marian says that the creator of the New Choice Tarot de Marseille is working on an RWS deck in that same vein. So,
I mean, Marion, I need to spend less money, not more money, just so that we are on the same page. Okay. I need less enablement. Thank you.
So just had to show this because this was
that's beautiful.
this was a coloring I did of the Nocturne when I got this deck. And I've had this in my house for a while, and I wrote on it, it says, what you do today will impact your tomorrow. So there's that idea that of karma, perhaps, where it is a cycle, and what you do today will impact tomorrow. I wanted to read what she said real quick about the Nocturne in her book because it really resonated when you were showing the Vampire Tarot.
Yeah.
Earlier, it had a similar feeling to it with the poison. But it says the spirit resident in this card is the Nocturne, who on the physical plane holds the highest office in the realm of Earth, born from the spiritual seed of the same elemental ace. And the idea there that spirit is present in the Two of Pentacles comes from that lemniscate, or that Ouroboros, that infinity symbol that is always present in almost every deck. And it says the Nocturne is a spirit who will be faithful companion through the dark night of the soul. This is a spirit that walks in step and orchestrates circumstances towards harmonious change. So the idea here is that this card represents that which you need, whether it be poison or it be medicine in your life, to achieve that balance. Maybe it's a good thing that you need at the moment. Maybe it's a bad thing you need at the moment. Well, not bad, but a negative, as it were, in your life to transform you, because it is a bit about transformation and finding that balance. We keep coming back to that word balance.
And what you said as well, that this in this card in a way reminisces the wheel. I think that the more that you go about, not just the ups and downs, but also the things that you need, the things that are going to push you in the direction that you need. All of that is very wheely as well. Is there an actual connection? I'm asking because I don't know, and today you're schooling me on the Two of Pentacles, totally. So is there an actual connection between the Two of Pentacles and the wheel?
The astrological correspondence is Jupiter in Capricorn. Jupiter is the wheel card in the tarot. And so this is that. So being in Capricorn is kind of ill-dignified, meaning that it is not its best self. And that's kind of the idea of this card, is that your world is turned upside down, right? I mean, things are off balance, so to speak. And so that's why in some versions, particularly Thoth-inspired versions, they will pull in that wheel energy, both going both directions, so to speak. And I kind of drew on that myself when I did my card.
Do
Um,
we get to see your card?
yes, we're going to work
Okay,
on that in
yeah.
just a moment. I'm
Okay,
looking to
yeah,
make
I
sure I
am
didn't
just
leave.
ahead of
No, you're
ahead
good.
of a
You're on
plan.
target. I
Yeah,
wanted to make sure that I didn't leave anything off of my notes. See, this is my notebook where I've been writing all of my notes for all of my cards. I only have 2
yeah.
empty pages left. Um,
So you have an almost complete deck and a complete notebook. I don't think I've finished a notebook in my life. Has
right? And
someone
I've
ever
never,
finised a notebook?
right? Me
Please speak
either. That
up.
was one of the reasons I did this. And of course,
Yeah,
Marianne is talking about the
yeah. Oh, I'm learning
astrological
some
correspondence here,
astrology
which
with
she
Marianne.
is much better
She's
equipped to speak on than I. So the wheel is Jupiter and Capricorn is the devil. So it's the idea of choices provided by the devil.
Oh, yeah, and she is teaching me some astrology because that's my weak point, and I wanted to also be able to incorporate it in tarot. And we've been talking about astrology and tarot terms to help
Mhm.
me understand what she said, like the idea of choices provided by the devil, and
This is my
she makes
go-to
it so
book right.
easy.
I have been basically I've been reading a little bit about astrology in terms of the
Yeah.
tarot, but I haven't actually studied astrology yet. That's my next task after I finish my deck and guidebook. So maybe 2024 I'll actually get to start that. But I have loved this book, Tarot and Astrology by
Oh,
Corinne Keener. There's only one thing I disagree with her about, and I've said that on every video recently, so I won't go into it right now. I'll tell you backstage.
okay.
Um, but it's
I've,
it's it's a wonderful book. I do enjoy it, but it is a
I've got this
very
one.
okay. All right, yeah.
Yeah, it's not tarot oriented, but it is my only book in astrology. So it's what it
Okay.
is.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, we can look at I was looking to make sure I didn't leave anything off. I think I talked about everything. We did mention money earlier,
Yeah.
but there is this idea in this card that it can represent making good decisions about using your time and money. You know, how and I mentioned kind of referenced that earlier when I talked about debt and choosing to pay Peter instead of Paul this week and that
Yeah.
type of thing. Um, and yeah, so time and money, whoosh, which the wheel really represents well, right? Because it's
It
time,
does.
right? The wheel of
It
time,
does.
so to speak. So I actually started several months ago working on this card because I knew I wanted to have a Marseille and Thoth kind of inspiration. And
Yeah.
I had done this at the time, and this was the lemniscate that I had used in the Magician and the Strength card. So I decided to repeat it, and I went with the Sun and Moon as the duality thing. But as I've moved closer and closer to this idea of non-duality, I decided I didn't like this image anymore for some reason, and so I started playing with making it fit in with the rest of my pentacles. So I placed it in like a more earthy background.
Huh?
And in the end, I actually changed to the lemniscate that I used in my temperance card because this word transformation and transmutation kept coming up in my readings about this card and about how things move from the down to the up and back again throughout. I decided that equating it with temperance might have a little bit of a significance for me anyway. And it also helped me spread the image around the deck, so there was some more continuity there. But I like how it turned out. I don't know
I
what everybody
do.
else thinks in the
I
comments.
do. And I like how the landscape is blending in with the background.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good choice. Well, I
So
I got to see the
this
deck
was the
when we
wheel
were.
card, and
Yeah.
hence my use of that rose cross here, because it was the wheel, which we mentioned earlier. And another thing I thought might be interesting is to look at all of the twos together now that I have
Oh
them.
yes.
Yes, so this is what the twos look like. Obviously, this one is much more idea focused than scenic or like a specific episode, where some of the cards are like specific moments in my life or scenes from my life. Some others are conceptual. And so, but this is what the twos will look like right
And
now.
I love them. I can't wait to see your deck finished. Do we
Yes.
have a date?
And so we will have, I'll have all of the images in 2 weeks, but I'm committed to having the link out for people who want to purchase it by July, though it may be quicker than that. I do want to at least get a print of it first to review.
Yeah.
And I have a couple of people, including Amy from Strength Reverse, who are going to review them for errors in. I actually found a huge error this week where I had used one type of elemental symbol on some cards and a different one on other cards, and so I had to go back and
Yeah,
make
maybe you need
all
to
of them
give
the
it
same across
to
the deck.
someone else.
Yeah.
Because it happens to me that when I see what I'm doing and I have seen it so many times, I'm like, okay, it's perfect. And then someone else sees it and there are 5 things to change. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah, Gerald is here too from Tarot Stash. He's also going to be reviewing the cards for me.
Oh,
I
great.
can't. This happened at StarCon. I was showing these cards to Marion and not Marion. Oh, I can't remember the girl's name, but Kate Murrah, who was here last week, was one of the people I was showing them to, and just flipping through the cards, she caught 2 errors. And it was like, oh my gosh, I thought these cards were finished that I was showing her, and she caught 2 errors right away. And so
Yeah.
I recruited Gerald and Amy to take a look at
Yeah, I
that.
think we spotted some while we were going through the cards as well in the bar.
Yeah, yes, I do remember
Yeah,
that too.
but yeah, those things happen.
Yeah. So next week, our mutual friend, Marike Lexman, who
Yay.
we met at StarCon, the author of the Madigan Chronicles, will be here and to do one of our last 2 cards. But before we figure out which card that's going to be, why don't you tell us what's going on with you right now and how people can work with you or get in touch with you?
Thank you. So, what's going on with me? Well, I'm involved in quite a few projects at the time. So, I'm excited about those, but I cannot share a lot yet. What I can share, though, is that I have an upcoming course with the World Divination Association. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, and if not, I can introduce that in a moment. And that's going to be about tarot oriented towards specific. I mean, specifically oriented, sorry, towards career, money, life purpose, those kind of questions that people come and ask you, like, what kind of career should I choose? And you can be a bit puzzled, like, okay, how do I interpret this specifically? Or it's going to be oriented at solving maybe work-related drama, connections, relationships that occur at work. All of those things is what we are going to be what we are going to be working with in this course that was due to start tomorrow, but that I had to push back to to April the 3rd. Sorry. So there's still time to enroll in that. When it comes to the World Divination Association, that's a community that you can visit. You can go to worlddivinationassociation.com or to our communities in Facebook, and there you can access a whole lot of systems of divination. We have tarot, we have Keeper, we have Lenormand, we have runes. What else do we have? The Oracle Berlin as well, with which I'm teaching, and we do a lot of fun stuff and lives and free teaching and events and things that probably you can enjoy. So you can give a look to that if you want. If you want to join our members community, you can contact me at the Sibyls Tarot. Yeah, it's at the Sibyls Tarot, right? What do you call a handle on Instagram? Yeah, that's me. You can work with me on thesibyls.tarot.com, and I mean, pretty much you type the Sibyls Tarot or my name, and you will find me. So yeah,
Wonderful.
that's
Yes, and
that's
if
it.
you've not taken any of her classes yet, they're wonderful. One of the
Thank
first
you.
classes I ever took was her exploring sexuality through the tarot,
It was
which
my
I
first
thoroughly
one.
enjoyed. And it kind of ended up in my class, the sex positive tarot class that I teach, which incorporates some other things that hers did not. And I'm actually enrolled right now in her class on tarot and death.
Oh,
But
are
I
you?
haven't started it yet. I
That's
got it
my
when I had a
second one.
discount, and I haven't started
Yeah.
it because I've been doing this.
I want actually I am thinking about updating exploring sexuality through tarot and the tarot death and grief because those were my very first courses and I have so much more insight there, and also I was very young, so I think that now I have more to say about things, or there are I don't know why the other day I was going through exploring sexuality through tarot, like the writing that I had done for that, and I was like, I can't believe I said this. So I was a bit like, okay.
Well, it's like
Yeah,
we grow over
yeah,
time. And, every year I revisit my class before I present it because I
yeah,
presented it 3 years in a row now. And every year I have new content.
yeah,
And I think that's part of growing is recognizing when we have learned something new and incorporating that. So
yeah,
I'm glad that you're doing that. So
yeah.
we're down to 2 cards. One of these cards is for next week, and the other
Yeah,
card is the last card,
last
which
card.
Amy
So
and
two
Gerald
reveals
will be
in
doing.
one.
So, left hand or right hand?
Left hand, of course.
Okay, so next week we'll be doing the Lovers with Marike Lex,
Ooh, that's a cool
which
card.
yeah, well, this is probably the card I've dreaded doing the most in the tarot because
Did you?
I I don't know. I guess I don't relate to it the way most people do. Most people are happy to see it. But me, I'm just like, I've never really connected with this card, but we'll figure it out this week while I'm studying it and working on it. That means that, does anybody remember what the last card is now?
No.
So we have now finished every suit except one. And oddly enough,
Oh,
it is the suit that represents my astrological sign, my major astrological sign, my sun sign. It is the air suit. And so the only card we have not done is the Knight of Swords. So the Knight of Swords will be my last card in this
yeah.
deck. I totally can relate to rushing into things. This is my action card. If I see this card, I'm like, okay, it's time to do it when I see it. And so I'll be talking about this card with Amy from Strength Reverse and Gerald from Terror Stash in two
Amy,
weeks.
who tripped me, no hard feelings.
She's nervous. All right. Yeah,
Oh, don't be.
the courts make everybody nervous, don't they? Yeah,
Yeah.
but next week we will be talking about the Lovers with Marike Lexman, and author of the Medican Chronicles. Thank you so much for being here, Maria. I
Thanks
really
to
do
you for inviting
appreciate it.
me. And I am so looking forward to seeing next week's. And I have to buy her books because I wanted them, but my my suitcase was full capacity, so there was no way I was going to put any more books into that suitcase.
Yes, we had that conversation about
Yeah.
taking decks back. Yes, you'll have to check a bag when you come back so we can
Yes, yes,
get
I
you
do
all
have.
of the decks that are too costly through customs.
Yeah, I mean, I
All
think it's cheaper to actually check a card than to go through customs in general. So
right.
yeah, I'm just
All
gonna.
right. Well, everybody, thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Until next time, good journeys.
Thanks.